We're now a couple of months into the boat build, which is going on inside of the barn on our little Sunhill farm.
Ah, nice!
For many, building a 50-foot boat is a daunting and overwhelming thing, but for us it's a dream come true. It's a huge project, but we enjoy and learn so much during each step of the process. The summer is slowly approaching, and the coming months will be our busiest so far, because we have to get the hull ready before fall. By fall, it will be too cold to do the fiberglass and epoxy, and we want to turn the hull over so we can continue the build during winter.
Okay,
We made it! It looks so cool. We have the first actual piece of run 3 in place. We need 3 strips to cover the whole length of the boat.
We're so happy that there are so many new people who have found our channel and are interested in our boat build. Welcome, and please subscribe if you haven't already.
So it's Monday again, another week here at the farm, and the boat build continues. But first, I wanted to send out a really big thank you for all the kind comments that we got from last week's episode. As some of you saw, we've been through some really rough times lately, and I just want to say thank you for those kind comments about my father's passing. Thanks a lot. For me, it feels good to keep my hands occupied and my mind on something else at times, going through something like this. So the boat build will continue, but maybe a bit slower pace right now. But for me, it feels best to have something to do. But before I start working today, I feel that I need to do a better explanation of what type of hull are we building. In last week's episode, I did some tests on different type of joints, scarf joints and just normal butt joints. And there seems to be some misunderstanding or misconceptions. Maybe I haven't explained it well enough on what type of boat we're really building. This is not a wooden hull, it's not a traditional wooden hull, and that's the reasoning behind why we're even thinking about maybe using a butt joint. We won't do that, but we talked about that in last week's episode. And the reason that we could do that if we wanted to is because this is a sandwich hull. We will have cedar in the core, but we'll have glass fiber pretty thick on both sides of this. And that together will form like a sandwich. So the cedar and the glass fiber will share the load of the hull. So this type of construction is vastly different from the type of hulls that you see built on YouTube channels like Acorn to Arabella or Samson Boat Company, which, by the way, are really good YouTube channels that you should check out. To conform to the old Lloyd rules on how to construct a wooden hull, you need to use at least a 1 to 4 scarf joint for the planks in the hull. We will probably use a 1 to 4 joints, but mostly for practical reason, not for the strength. And this, by the way, the Lloyd's rule is when you spread those joints out, you can't have them adjacent to each other. The same way that we will do. We will have one joint and then a couple of planks in between before we have the next joint in line with that one. We will, on top of that, use glass fiber on both sides, so we really don't need it for the strength. Using a 1 to 12 joint for the hull planks is really not needed. That's something that you would do for like a spar, wooden spar, or maybe the keel plank or something like that. You could also use a butt joint in an old wooden hull, but then you have to have a backing plank on the back side of that to give it strength. So I just wanted to bring that up so everybody is on the same page and have the same understanding on the reasoning behind why we're building the boat the way we're doing, and why there's really no traditional boat building methods involved, at least in this phase of the build. So I just made this simple jig out of plywood to make the scarf joint cut a bit easier. Right now it's set up for a 1-to-4 scarf joint. I found that it was a bit easier with a bit shallower angle when you were pressing down on the pieces when there is epoxy in between. The 60-degree angle was okay, but it was still very easy to get it to slip. This was much faster and easier to get it to stay in the correct position. And it works pretty fine cutting the scarves like this, pretty fast and accurate. And the plan now is to cut these and glue them up, as many as we can, from what we have already ripped. And then we mount those tomorrow when the epoxy has cured, and rip some more cedar strips. There are a few things that you need to check when you're gluing these scarf joints. The first, that you don't create like a dog leg like this, so you have a straight strip all the way. And that's quite easy. The harder part is to try to prevent the pieces from slipping apart when you put pressure on it like this. The epoxy is quite slippery, so it's really easy that they slide apart. And then that will create a low spot here, since the plank won't be as thick in this area where the joint is compared to the other part of the plank. So the way I try to prevent that is just using a stapler to put some staples in to try to prevent it from slipping. And so far I think it works pretty good actually. The only problem now is that I don't have enough of these clamps. So maybe I have enough of these 3 strips now, but if we're gluing up more than this, we need to get some more clamps of some sort. The good thing with epoxy is that you don't need a lot of clamping pressure. So smaller spring clamps like this are perfectly fine. So that's it. These are now glued up, and I will let them cure overnight. And my conclusion so far is that this will be a lot faster than try to mount them like we did before on the hull and join them once we're applying them. It's a pity we don't have more cedar ripped up right now. We only have for these 3, and I have another one on the other side here. So the plan is that I'll mount these tomorrow before lunch, and then After lunch we'll rip up some more cedar and get that planed and glue up some more of these. And I think once we get this going, maybe we can glue up 6 to 8 of these long strips in the afternoon, let it cure overnight, mount it the day after. And once we get that going, I think it will be pretty efficient and fast way to get the hull planked. And who knows, maybe we can do more than that. I won't make any promises, but I mean 8 or 9 of these strips a day would be really nice.
The strips had cured, and Johan removed all the staples and cleaned up the joints from epoxy. Vera and I came out to help move the strips to the other side of the hull. 15.5 meter long strips aren't the easiest to handle. Don't worry, the strip made it. We will set up gluing stations on both sides of the hull to make things smoother. We got a tip from a viewer to put the pastry bag in a plastic bottle cut in half when filling it with epoxy, and it worked great.
I try to remove as much as possible of the excess epoxy before it cures, in an attempt to save us time on the sanding later on. But it takes quite a lot of time to remove it as well, so I'm not sure if it really, if we gain any time on it really.
It was time to rip another couple of cedar planks, and Johan was going to try to do it on his own today. We've measured each plank, so that will get the most amount of strips out.
Vera is home from kindergarten today. She's not feeling very well, so Malin is taking care of her today. But I will try to do this on my own, and so far I think it works pretty good with these rollers and the on and off magnets to keep the planks some pressure against the fence here. Makes it a lot easier. So I think I'm going to do maybe 2 or 3 of these planks today, and get those plain so I can glue up some more strips so we can keep going with the planking of the hull.
Last time we ripped cedar, we got around 165 meters of strips. And Johan's goal today will be 250 meters of strips. Now that the ripping is done, we need to plane the strips before they can be glued together and go on the hull. But let's do that next week. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoy our videos, it will mean a lot to us to have you join our Patreon crew. Thanks to everyone who already support our production, and see you next week.